John Denver wrote about the Rocky Mountain High, but what was he really talking about in this song? Tune in to find out.
You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast where people self-diagnosed with wanderlust.
Welcome to the Travel FOMO podcast. I am here with my husband and someone who has returned to the Rockies with me several times, Jamin.
That John Denver's full of junk.
Hey. What's that from?
Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, that's right. That's awesome. Oh, man. That one's for you, Ashley. My cousin Ashley, I feel like all of her family, they've watched that more times than I could count. Okay, so we've been to the park multiple times, but this time it was different because we actually went into the Rocky Mountain National Park, which a lot of times I've kind of like been to the Rockies to go snow skiing, but never really inside the national park, I don't think. So
I hadn't either. I'm honestly surprised more people don't talk about this one.
Right?
It
was wonderful.
I feel like a lot of national parks get a lot of run, and this one doesn't get mentioned as much, but it's a great one.
Yeah, exactly. And this is actually wrapping up season 10 for us. This is our season on national parks. The national park spree that we went on in the middle of our gap year while we were hauling our Airstream through the US and Canada. And in this episode particularly, we're going to hang out with my brother Lamar. Mm-hmm. We are going to go to my niece's soccer game.
Yeah.
We are going to go to the Westward Music Festival, which is pretty fun in Denver. And actually, that's where I discovered one of my new favorite bands. So that's fun. We go to church with my brother and sister-in-law. We go to St. Vereen State Park, Estes Park, Stanley Hotel, and Rocky Mountain National Park. We got to see a lot.
Yeah, a lot crammed into just a few days.
Yeah, we'll try to move quickly for this episode. It was awesome.
It was a lot of fun. We arrived from Durango. If you listened to the last episode, we had a lot of fun there. Our first stop in Colorado. We actually came to Loveland, Colorado, which is just north of Denver. This is the RV park that we stayed in at the very beginning. And kind of our first order of business was get to see family. When you are on the road all the time and like living a sort of nomadic lifestyle, relationships are harder to maintain.
Yeah.
They're tricky, especially if you're doing national parks because you're out where like cell phone service is rough. So even as simple as like texting or calling is hard. Mm-hmm. So it was really nice to get to see family. As you mentioned, it was your brother Lamar, his wife Ashley, our niece Everly, nephew Atlas. They're in Denver a lot, and so it worked out perfectly that we got to hook up with them. Friday we went and had dinner in Lafayette,
which
Colorado.
I didn't know much about.
I didn't
it's
either.
It's a fun suburb.
Yeah, we were lucky that we had locals to guide us. We had Teocalli, was where we went to dinner. It was really, really good. And then we went to Odd 13 Brewing. So if you're in Lafayette and you want some good grub and some good brews, go check them out. Very, very good.
Yes, really good. And then the next day was one of my favorite days because I got to go to my niece's soccer game, which was so fun. It was only a 3-hour drive. Because we were in Denver for the weekend, but she actually they live in Salida, and so we had to make our way out to Salida, and but I got to ride with like my brother and my niece and nephew and had some quality time, which was wonderful. And I have to say, my niece loves dragons, especially she loves cats more now, but she really loved dragons at the time. And she was reading me a book about dragons, and she really wanted to share this book with me. And either that or I really wanted her to read for me. I can't remember, but one of us was really excited about it. And she was so good. It was like an audiobook that a little adult was doing. I mean, there was honestly no room for improvement. And I remember thinking that really vividly at one point. I was like, she's got down every emotion and punctuation. It's like she'd read it 6 times already. It was crazy. But anyway, She's also very good at soccer, and she won her game. So that was lovely. And I remember sitting there on the field, beside the field with my brother, and kind of looking around me and thinking, this is beautiful. It was just like this flat green field in the middle of a bunch of mountains, and you looked in all angles around you, like 360 view around you was mountains. And it was just like in this little valley. And I was like, wow, this is like people here, they just see this every single day. Like you go to a soccer game on Saturday, and that's your view.
It's very different than the plains.
Yes, very different. Very different. But anyway, it was lovely. So really good time. Love the family time for sure. And then meanwhile, you were taking Maggie to the vet.
Yep. I didn't get to go to the soccer game. I had to take Maggie to the vet. It's one of those things when you are on the road all the time, you got to figure out how to do stuff that you're like, oh yeah, it's time for Maggie's shots, and where are we going to go? Fortunately,
especially whenever like you've got your dog out in the wild a lot. Yes. Because you want to make sure they're really getting taken care of.
Yeah. And you want to make sure they're healthy and in good shape. And even beyond that, a lot of RV parks require proof of vaccination and things like that. If we ever want to board her, they also require that kind of stuff. Fortunately, we found a city vet in downtown Denver, and we actually went to city vet in Dallas. So they had all of her records and all that kind of stuff. So we were able to get Maggie all hooked up with her vet appointment, and it was just like taking her to a normal vet appointment. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of weird explaining to everyone that, no, we're not new in town, and we'll be in town for like 72 more hours, but this doesn't make sense for us to do in Dallas because we don't know the next time that we're going to be back there.
Yeah. That's so funny. And speaking of Maggie, she's making a little cameo today. She is just swishing her little feet all over this carpet in here. So if you hear the jingling of this little collar, that's Maggie. But yeah, and then we got to do a lot more fun with family. We got to go to Westward Music Festival, thanks to my sister-in-law Ashley. She was working for Deep Eddy Vodka at the time, and so she snagged us some tickets to get to be a part of it as part of her job. And then also we got to see ex-ambassadors. We got to see Flaming Lips, Saint Motel. Saint Motel now is one of my faves. I love them so much. And yeah, we got to go to church with them and do Sunday lunch and all of that. It was really, really nice. And then we moved locations because we wanted something a little closer to the national park at that point.
Yeah, we had to split up our stay. We couldn't get all in one place, but we were able to go to St. Vrain State Park. And it was really nice. Definitely recommend it. It was super affordable and kind of a big wide open park with big nice spaces. And the place we stayed in Loveland was fine, but this state park,
it was great actually.
Yeah, like it was good, but this state park was really nice. If you can get in there, and if you need to stay in the Denver area with your RV, like try to get into that place. It was really good.
The views, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, these views are so great. I love these views. You could just see the start of the national park, literally just in the sun would set, and you'd have all these mountains like that were in front of it. It was really beautiful. Yeah,
it was really great. I feel like every time I'm in Denver, I look around, I'm just like, wow,
it's true.
This is so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Along with Rocky Mountain National Park, one of the great things that we got to explore is Estes Park. The little city right outside the park, which is a great little town. All kinds of like cutesy little stuff. You can buy a t-shirt there, I'm pretty sure, like all of Colorado. But we also got to explore the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, which is really, really cool. If you're familiar with The Shining, Stephen King wrote The Shining after visiting there, sort of based on the Stanley Hotel. Hillary was really excited because it's haunted.
I love that.
They also filmed scenes of Dumb and Dumber there.
Yeah, that's fun too.
So just bringing it full circle. And the Stanley Hotel has like a lot of stuff that you can do even if you're not staying there. Like we went and had a drink and dinner, but you can also take a lot of tours there. They have the Frozen Dead Guy tour. They have a historic tour, a night tour, the Shining tour. They have like an underground auditorium there where magicians perform. If you're really into magic,
Oh, wow.
you
That's like a
can
lot.
go see the magic. And there's, just a ton of stuff in Estes Park that makes Rocky Mountain National Park pretty cool as well. I mean, we even stopped for some donuts in Estes Park, like on our way into the park one morning, and they were really good.
I really recommend that. Like, what a fun way to like start your day at a national park, to like hit up a donut shop for like fresh donuts right as you enter the park.
Well, and that's the nice thing about it too, is it's right at the entrance to the park.
Yeah.
I feel like so many national parks, the closest town is still a ways away.
Right.
And Estes Park is right there. So if you stay in Estes Park or you're going through it, like it's right outside the national park.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the park itself was well worth the little drive from the Denver area. There were tons of wildlife sightings that we saw immediately.
Yes.
I think that shocked me the most.
Actually, me too. I was prepared for the park to be really cool and beautiful, but I was not prepared to see as much wildlife as we did.
Like we saw elk, which by the way, you can see elk if you just go to Estes Park. They are all over the town. Like you might hit one if you're not careful. They are everywhere, which is really fun because they're so close and they're so big. But we saw within the park, we saw elk, deer, a big black bear. I can't remember what all we saw. There's a lot. We went to Bear Lake area, which I have to say the highlight for me was Bear Lake area.
Yes.
It was just beautiful. And along the drive, that's where we saw this big black bear standing on all fours in this open area. And it was like he was looking right at us. You could see his whole body. And yeah, it was just wonderful. And then like this elk that we saw was really close too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that. Like, we actually have really good footage of that in the YouTube video.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a really good one. But one of my favorite things was hiking a couple different lakes. We did Nymph, Dream, and Emerald lakes. And it totally surprised me because I didn't know that there were so many alpine lakes to enjoy in the Rocky Mountain National Park. It was a really busy area. The altitude was kind of kicking everybody's butt. I do remember because we were like on that hike and everybody was so out of breath, and it didn't seem that steep, but we were just already so high in the mountains at that point that like even walking a little bit was like really taking it out of you. But I would definitely spend more time there in the Bear Lake area. It was great.
Yeah, I agree. Like it was my favorite part too. But there's a lot there. We drove the Trail Ridge Road. It's actually the highest road in America. There's like 11 miles that's above the tree line, which was really kind of cool to see, especially not having to hike it, but being able to drive and see that much of it.
Was it scary to drive it? I remember thinking that.
There were really narrow parts and a few steep parts where it's like, if we go off the side, like we're never stopping. We're just going to fall forever. Because it is like, it takes you up to like 12,000 feet, which is really high. But it wasn't too bad. Like we'd definitely driven scarier stuff.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we weren't hauling a trailer up there, which some people were. So way to go, guys.
To them.
Yeah. But you can look down and spot these little lakes, and stop and take some short hikes. It was really windy and pretty cold up there.
Yeah.
So just be prepared for that when you're up there. And there's a ranger station kind of up there where you can use the restroom, get something to eat, and those kinds of things. But it's worth doing while you're there. Like it's one of the highlights of the park.
Yeah, for sure. I got so sleepy on that drive. I was like,
you did.
I needed a nap.
Yeah, I remember I went and hiked a little bit along the Colorado River, like on the west side, while you just slept in the truck.
I literally took a nap in the car. I was like, I don't think I want to go on a hike with you. I think I just...
It was kind of cool because I didn't have to follow any of the Hillary Bear protocol as I hiked.
Ooh, right.
So we didn't have to make loud noises the whole time.
That's
or,
right.
Do all that kind of stuff.
That's funny. That's so funny. One of the favorite things that I learned about the Rocky Mountain National Park is the blue mist that exists there.
Yeah.
And I have some fun stories. If it's okay for me to share. Do you mind?
Share away. You've already teased it. Now everyone's gonna be mad if they don't hear about the blue mist.
Okay, this is really interesting. Okay, so there is a legend about this weird blue mist that is seen on cloudy days in the area. And in the Fall River Valley, there was this hermit guy who used to live there, and they called him Miner Bill. And he was he hardly ever left his home, and even literally once a year he would go down and get the supplies that he needed, and other than that he'd give even then he would exchange actual gold dust to people at the bank in exchange for money. He didn't actually have money on him ever, so when he went into town he had to take gold so he could get money. And over the years he just kept getting more and more nervous about the mountains, and he would come down and he would talk to people and he'd be he kept saying there was something wrong with the mountains, something wrong up there. And one time he and his friend Troy were sitting in his cabin when the mist came in, and it settled near a tree nearby, which sounds really weird. It sounds like a small cloud of mist, kind of, around this tree. And he had this Doberman Pinscher, and it was going ballistic, and this dog is barking like crazy. He actually broke off of his chain inside the cabin and got out the front door and ran to this tree with all the mist around it. And as soon as he had lunged up on that tree, he was thrown back into the doorway, because they thought something freaky was happening, so they stayed inside, and the dog ran out, and then the dog was thrown back into the cabin with his throat cut. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
So he started shooting at the tree, Miner Bill did, and a branch came down and hit him, and his friend had to take him down to civilization. It was during the winter, and I had to take him down on a pair of skis, and he was never the same. Neither one of them were never the same. And he was not the only one to witness the two men were not the only one to witness this over the years. And there's a bunch of different stories, and I'm going to tell a couple of them, but there's a bunch of different stories where people have seen this strange mist over years, and it always leaves behind tracks, 3-toed claw marks. So either in a tree or in the snow or in the dirt or something, there's always these 3-toed claw marks. So in the first story, there's a group of 18 people from Fort Collins Ski Club, and this is during the winter. They were hiking overnight in the moonlight, which is kind of crazy to me. I didn't know people would do that, right?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. So I guess they're hiking up with their skis through the snow in the moonlight to Lawn Lake and Crystal Lake, and the moonlight was so strong they could see everyone skiing around. So it was no big deal. You could see each other just fine. And one person decided to go up to Rogue Glacier, and it was about 150 yards away, and everyone could see him until he kind of disappeared around a bend, and then this blue mist appeared. And an hour later, he still hadn't come back, and several people went up to investigate, and they could see all of his tracks and how he went up the hill, and then he turned, and then his tracks just disappeared. And a few hours later, an official search party came up, and they never found him, but they did find 3-toed claw tracks.
So he was gone forever.
He was gone forever. I don't even think they ever found his body. And the second story is, I've got Jamin thinking he's going to try to debunk this, but okay. The second story is, a few years later, another hiking group from Fort Collins experienced the mist on a really nasty day during the fall, and it came while they were all sitting around some scattered rocks, and it was so thick they couldn't even see each other. So this mist comes in super strong, and all of a sudden, they're kind of you kind of feel really alone, right? Because you can't see the person next to you. Mm-hmm. And a boy from New Jersey had a bit of mountain sickness at that time. And so when the mist eventually left, he was gone. And the only remaining thing was 3 toed claw marks right where he'd been sitting. And he was never found.
So the mist eats people, is
I
your
don't know. Isn't that weird?
assertion.
His parents kept coming back too. Like they returned to the site for like 10 years looking for him. Isn't that wild?
That is crazy.
Okay, so here's another story. So, I mean, all of these stories, like, it's kind of crazy how they all line up over the years. But there's another instance where a couple of kids from Minnesota were going to go ski in around Chasm Lake. And the weather was really bad, and they didn't really get that far. And the couple got hypothermia, and the girl injured herself along the way. And so the guy went for help, but he was never seen again. And eventually the Park Service organized a search party, and whenever they realized that this couple hadn't come back, and they did find her, but they never found him. And at this point, the mist was kind of more well known. I think it'd be really interesting to talk to people in Estes Park to see like if they believe in this mist, you know, and the folklore around it. But several months later, after this had happened, some visitors mentioned seeing the blue mist to their waitress. I think this waitress was in Estes Park, and she called the police. That's how seriously she took it whenever they mentioned seeing a blue mist come in. Like, she called the police. And the sheriff went out to investigate, and because he knew that, like, when this mist comes in, people usually show up missing or dead when we hear about this blue mist. So he took it really seriously too, and he found something. He found the body of the boy who died of hypothermia a few months earlier. Isn't that crazy? It's like the mist picks up people and like
deposits them
dead. Isn't that weird? Anyway, I just thought it was like a really interesting haunting of, you know, what happens in Rocky Mountain National Park. So if you're ever camping there, ooh, that would be like really interesting. Scary. But I think it's fascinating too how people, how they hike in the winter in the snow to ski. I think that's like, I would never do that. I would say I would never do that. I just didn't know it was a thing.
That is really interesting. So would you be more likely to stay in the haunted room at the Stanley Hotel?
Yes.
Or to camp?
Well, definitely Stanley Hotel. Yeah. But the camping thing, like, that's really interesting, huh?
Which do you think is more real? The Stanley Hotel haunting or the blue mist?
I don't know. Good question. What do you think's more real?
Neither one of those.
Well, I don't know as much about the Stanley Hotel hauntings. I just know that's like haunted, you know? So I think my stories right here are really compelling. So I might be leaning towards the blue mist.
Well, we definitely recommend that you hit up Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yes.
Do the Bear Lake area. The hikes there are great.
So one of the things you could do while you're there, and we didn't do this, but I did read about it and thought that sounded pretty cool, is the Longs Peak area. I read a story about the first female who hiked Longs Peak. Her name was Isabella Bird, and she was pretty adventurous. She was a travel writer from England, and she was like, I mean, wearing a dress, riding a horse as far as she could. Like, it's really a pretty well circulated story that has inspired a lot of other people to come to the Rockies, actually. And she had this mountain guide, Jim, and he was helping her to climb the mountain, and it was becoming harder and harder. And I think they had to abandon their horse at some point. And so they finally climb up to the top, and whenever he saw it, he was just like, the sun rose one morning while they're on the mountain, and he was like, I think I believe there is a God. Just because it was so beautiful. And anyway, it was kind of crazy because the stories you hear of like people getting up that high, they were so thirsty at the top of the mountain they could hardly even speak. They could hardly formulate words.
That's crazy.
That's wild. They couldn't suck on the ice or the snow because the effort of it would make them more dehydrated, is I think the way I understood that. And so she, in her comments, and think about it, this is a travel writer, so she's
right.
somebody who wants to express what she's experiencing as she goes on these adventures. And one of the things that she said is she thinks it's good for everyone to go thirsty at least once in their life so that they can have empathy for other people. And that's because she experienced that. And I just think that's really compelling. It's really interesting, like, how travel can change your life and your perspective on things. But they left their name in a tin can at the top before coming back down. And I think other people have done that as well. So it's kind of fascinating. Just kind of as we're talking about recommendations for people, the West Side is a little less scenic because of some forest fires they've had.
Yes.
So the East Side is the East Side is the side with Estes Park too. It's a little more beautiful now. It's kind of maybe the best side of the park to enter from and enjoy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. And Estes Park too, like see Estes Park.
Yeah.
The Stanley Hotel is worth seeing. All of that can kind of be packaged all together with Rocky Mountain. So go check it out. It's worth it.
Yeah. And something that I've been thinking a lot about is how there's research out there that proves that being out in nature is really good for us. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's really compelling to know that there are studies that have proven. I was reading a Harvard article from this year, 2024, and they were just reiterating how exposure to green spaces has been linked to better sleep, lower blood pressure, and reduced risk of chronic disease. It helps people mentally restore themselves, and it increases positive emotions. It decreases anxiety. There's just all kinds of great reasons to go out there and enjoy the great outdoors. And just wanted to mention that because I really feel like the Rocky Mountains especially is just so lush, and it gives you that like feeling of being in the great outdoors.
Yeah. It definitely delivers on what you want from that nature outdoor mountain experience.
Yes. Yeah. And the Rockies have always felt so familiar to me because I had been snow skiing enough there in the Colorado area that I just felt like, oh, I've been there. But this was full of surprises, like the wildlife, the lakes, all of the lakes up so high. That was just really cool to see.
Yeah.
And then overall, like, it's just got a great personality. Like, I love even just Denver. Like, when we're at the concert in different places in Denver, you could tell that everyone's like, you do you. Like, anything goes. Like, people, there's not necessarily I felt like there wasn't as much of a style or like it just felt like you could just truly be yourself, and everybody accepted everybody fully. Yeah. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's really cool. Well, you will want to make sure that you stay with us because, as Hillary said earlier, this is the last episode of our national park spree, but we are not done traveling, not by a long shot. There's still a lot of gap year left to share, and we are starting this next leg out with a bang. We are going from Denver to Nashville.
Yeah.
And to do it, we have to cross the windiest Kansas you've ever heard of in your life. It was pretty rough, and we actually stayed overnight at a Cracker Barrel in St. Louis.
I feel like this started our whole Cracker Barrel thing. I feel like we hadn't really stayed at Cracker Barrels until now, and now at this point we really started doing the Cracker Barrel thing.
Yeah, this was our first time to stay overnight at a Cracker Barrel. That unlocked the Cracker Barrel cheat code for us, and we went back to that well a lot of times.
That's right, because they allow RVs to stay parked there overnight, and they have Wi-Fi, which you can access from your RV, and I think it's a little safer, like they have cameras or something.
Yeah, and they're always clean. There's always a trash can.
There's always good breakfast
that you could use. Like, you're either at the end of a long travel day and you get to have a nice dinner, or you get to wake up and have a really great breakfast before you hit the road.
Yeah.
So it really worked out for us a lot. So thanks, Cracker Barrel, for saving us a lot of like random like overnight fees at RV parks.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, if you guys would like to stay connected with us, you can follow us on social media. We are out there on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. We are also out there on YouTube, and that's another way you can engage us. We would love for you to go check out some of the videos we have out there. The footage from the Rocky Mountains is gorgeous. Also, it's a great way to kind of comment on the things that you're seeing, and also learn from other people. Sometimes we have people commenting and they're kind of teaching us things along the way, and you can tell that it's kind of a learning opportunity for everybody. Go out there, check that out, and if you have a good story for us, or you just want to reach out and talk to us personally, you are more than welcome to reach out to our email address. That is travelfomopodcast@gmail.com, and we would love to hear from you.
Yep. We are excited to share all of our travels with you and would love to connect on that sort of deeper level, and make sure you're with us because we're headed east.
That's right, east in the airstream. Okay, guys, don't forget, life is short.
Wander well.